Michael had lived in Willow Creek for almost 10 years, but his home had never felt more like a sanctuary than after his wife's passing. The oak tree in his backyard, tall and sprawling, had been their final shared project. She had planted it as a sapling, insisting it would one day cast shade over their lives together. Now its branches reached wide, a living monument to her memory. Every morning, Michael sat by the kitchen window with his coffee, eyes drifting to the tree. It was his ritual, his way of holding on. But across the fence, someone else saw the oak not as a memory, but as an obstruction. Karen. She was the type of neighbor who believed the cul-de-sac should bend to her will. From her freshly trimmed hedges to the symmetrical potted plants on her porch, her life was a showcase of order. And in her mind, Michael's oak broke that order. "You know," she said one afternoon, leaning over the fence, "if you trimmed that tree, the sunset would look so much better from my patio." Michael didn't look up from his rake. "It's fine the way it is." Her smile tightened. "Just saying, it blocks the view for everyone." "Everyone? Or just you?" he asked quietly. Karen's lips pressed together and she retreated, heels clicking against her driveway. From that day forward, her disapproval became sharper. Notes slipped into Michael's mailbox about fallen leaves, complaints about branches hanging dangerously near the fence, and icy stares each time they crossed paths. At first, Michael ignored her. Grief had taught him to choose silence over conflict. But the tension began seeping into the rhythm of the neighborhood. Other neighbors whispered, caught between sympathy for the widower and fear of Karen's sharp tongue. One evening, as Michael sat by the window, he saw her standing in her yard, hands on her hips, glaring at the oak as if she were already planning its removal. His chest tightened. Something in her gaze wasn't just annoyance, it was resolve. And Michael knew, though he couldn't yet explain why, that this tree was about to become the center of a war. The first sound Michael heard that morning wasn't bird song or the hum of sprinklers. It was the violent growl of a chainsaw. His body shot upright, heart hammering. The window rattled faintly, and when he pulled the curtain aside, his breath froze. Karen stood in his backyard. She was wearing gardening gloves and oversized sunglasses, her body poised with grim determination as she sliced through one of the lower branches of the oak. Sawdust sprayed into the air like a storm of ash. The tree shuddered under her assault, and Michael's throat went dry. He stumbled to the door, barefoot, rage building like fire in his chest. "Karen!" His voice cracked across the yard. "What the hell are you doing?" She paused only long enough to flip the chainsaw off, sweat glistening on her forehead. "This tree is a hazard, Michael. It drops leaves everywhere, it's leaning, and frankly, it's ruining the neighborhood view." Somebody had to do something. Michael's fists clenched. "It's on my property. You have no right, none." Karen lifted her chin, her lips curling in disdain. "I have every right when your negligence affects the rest of us. Don't make me the villain for cleaning up what you should have handled years ago." The exchange carried across the cul-de-sac. Curtains twitched, doors opened. Neighbors stepped out quietly, drawn by the spectacle. Michael could feel their eyes on him, their whispered judgments feeding Karen's confidence. He moved closer, voice low, trembling. "That tree was my wife's. You touch it again, and I swear." Karen's sunglasses hid her eyes, but her smirk was audible. "Or what? Call the HOA, please. They're already tired of your mess." Michael's jaw tightened. Something inside him cracked, not just grief, but the humiliation of watching her dismantle the last symbol of his wife in front of an audience. Neighbors exchanged uneasy looks. The chainsaw roared back to life. Michael snatched his phone, snapping photos with shaking hands. "This isn't over," he said. "Not even close." Karen didn't reply. She just pressed the blade against another branch, drowning his words in the machine's howl. By the time police tape and legal letters entered the picture, the neighborhood was already buzzing. What began as fallen leaves had now grown into whispers of lawsuits, revenge, and something far more dangerous than anyone imagined. The chainsaw incident spread through Willow Creek faster than wildfire. Within days, the police had filed reports, lawyers were contacted, and a lawsuit began taking shape. Michael had once been the quiet neighbor, the man who waved politely but rarely spoke. Now, his name was whispered in driveways and over backyard fences, always followed by Karens. The courtroom was small, sterile, and unforgiving. Michael sat stiffly beside his lawyer, his eyes fixed on the grainy photos he'd taken that morning. Karen standing in his yard with the chainsaw like an executioner.
Across the aisle, Karen radiated smug composure, her pearl necklace gleaming beneath the fluorescent lights. When the judge asked for statements, Karen leaned forward, voice dripping with practiced indignation. "Your Honor, this tree posed a safety risk. Branches overhanging the fence, leaves clogging drains. I acted in the interest of the community. If Mr. Hale," she gestured at Michael without looking, "were more responsible, none of this would have happened." Michael's lawyer responded coolly, sliding papers across the desk. "Property records, photos and neighbor testimonies say otherwise. She trespassed. She destroyed what wasn't hers." But as the proceedings stretched on, darker truths began to surface. Karen's finances were unraveling, unpaid HOA dues, liens on her property, and letters from creditors. The oak tree wasn't about safety or views. It was about control, about projecting authority in a life that was slipping out of her grasp. Michael listened, jaw tight, memories of his wife swelling like a wound. He remembered her laughter under that tree, the way she had leaned against its trunk during their last summer together. Losing her had gutted him. Losing the oak felt like losing her all over again. During recess, Karen cornered him in the hallway. Her voice was sharp, almost venomous. "Drop this case, Michael. You can't win against me." His eyes met hers, hollow and unflinching. "I already lost everything. You can't take more from me." The words rattled her, though she hid it with a smirk. But as Karen walked away, Michael felt something stir inside him. A crack widening, grief curdling into something darker. The case wasn't just about the tree anymore. It was about power, about memory, about survival. And in Willow Creek, revenge had already taken root, waiting to bloom. The verdict came down hard. Karen was fined heavily for trespassing and destruction of property. The HOA, once her stronghold, turned its back on her. Neighbors who once cowered at her sharp tongue now avoided her altogether, whispering about debt collectors, lawsuits, and shame. Michael won on paper, but victory felt hollow. The oak was gone. In its place, a jagged stump jutted from the soil like a scar, a reminder of what had been stolen. He stared at it every morning, coffee cooling in his hands, feeling the silence grow heavier. The court had punished her, yes, but it hadn't restored what mattered. One night, weeks later, Karen returned from a late meeting, her heels clicking on the empty sidewalk. The neighborhood was quiet, windows dark, sprinklers hissing faintly in the distance. She didn't notice the figure waiting by the fence line, shadowed by the stump. "Karen." Michael's voice broke the silence, low and steady. She startled, clutching her purse tighter. "What do you want, Michael? Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" He stepped forward, face half hidden in the dark. "You took the only thing I had left." "And you think this is over?" Karen scoffed, but her voice wavered. "It was just a tree. Get over it." The words landed like poison. What happened next was never clearly reported. Some said they heard a muffled cry. Others claimed they saw nothing at all. By morning, Karen's driveway was empty, her porch light still burning. Days turned into weeks, flyers with her photo curled on lampposts. Police cars prowled the cul-de-sac, knocking on doors. Neighbors whispered theories, an escape from debt, a secret lover, or something darker.
Michael kept to himself. He watered the ground where the oak once stood, silent, expression unreadable. The stump remained, stark and unyielding, as if watching the street with a grim patience. In Willow Creek, the whispers grew louder, circling one unspoken truth. The tree was gone, and so was Karen. And the soil beneath the stump seemed just a little darker than before.